Hey, let me tell you the craziest friendship breakup story you'll hear this year. Johnny Somali's friend, Hank the Tank, made a bombshell revelation on a podcast. This guy openly admitted that he spent $20,000 to keep Johnny's poor ass afloat. Yes, you heard that right. And now it's over. Completely over. This story is so wild that if it were a movie, you'd walk out of the theater thinking, this couldn't possibly be real. But here we are, with all the documents, watching the real-time collapse of the most expensive friendship ever. Here's the jaw-dropping part. Hank had never even met Johnny before all this chaos began. Think about it for a second. You'd probably think twice before lending your best friend from college $20, but this guy spent $20,000 on a random internet personality he'd never even met. This aligns with my honor compass, he says. Honor compass? Friend, what kind of honor compass tells you to finance a complete stranger's entire life? Lawyer fees, rent, food, bills, everything. This wasn't just helping a friend, it was essentially adopting an adult man. And listen to this. When Hank was asked if Johnny would do the same for him, what was his answer? Probably not. He even knew Johnny wouldn't spend a single penny on him. Yet this situation made sense to him for nearly a year. Let's put that money into perspective for a moment. $20,000 could buy a nice car, a year's worth of college tuition, a solid emergency fund, or a down payment on a house in some places. But instead, it all went toward keeping Johnny Somali out of trouble. Crazy.
Now, don't get me wrong. Online friendships can be real and meaningful. I have friends I met while gaming whom I would trust with my life. But there's a difference between supporting someone and becoming their financial guardian without ever meeting them face to face. Hank became so attached to this man that he essentially became Johnny's father, not just financially, but emotionally as well. Every time Johnny messed things up, which was constantly, Hank was there to clean up the mess. This isn't friendship, it's excessive support. You know what the craziest part is? Hank's family probably thought he'd lost his mind. Imagine trying to explain to your family that you're spending their potential inheritance on a troubled person you met online. Mom, Dad, I know this looks bad, but it's a matter of honor. Do you want to know why Hank eventually broke down? Imagine living with someone who uses your home like a college dorm during orientation week. We're talking about an adult man who gets drunk, vomits everywhere, doesn't clean up after himself, and turns your home into his personal playground. Do you know the best part? Johnny isn't paying rent. This man is living in Hank's house for free, eating his food, paying his bills, and probably leaving dirty dishes everywhere. Meanwhile, Hank is covering Johnny's legal fees because he's constantly getting into trouble. Imagine this. You come home from work and there's vomit in the bathroom, empty bottles everywhere, and your roommate is passed out on the couch. Oh, and he's not your roommate. He's someone you met this year who is financially dependent on you. How long would you put up with that? I don't care how much you believe in honor. At some point, you have to draw the line. And apparently, after $20,000 and 9 months of chaos, Hank finally found his limit. But what really struck me was this. Hank started feeling like a guest in his own home. Think about it. The man who pays for everything started tiptoeing around the guy living there for free. That's next-level psychological manipulation. This is where things get really interesting. These two geniuses were planning to sue Legal Mindset for defamation because the man was criticizing them. Makes sense, right? You can't let people talk trash about you and get away with it. But, and this is where things get really funny, Hank goes on this podcast and openly admits that he did it all for the money. Yes, if I can get money out of him, of course, he says. The man ruined his own case with a single sentence. How can you go to court and say, he defamed me, when you've openly admitted on record that you were trying to make money? The judge would probably laugh him out of the courtroom. But wait, there's more. This is the same man who claims to value free speech so highly. I really value free speech, he says.
but then he tries to sue someone who exercises their free speech? The mental gymnastics here are Olympic level. This is like saying, I believe in free speech, but only if it hurts my feelings or my wallet. Free speech doesn't work that way, my friend. You can't be a free speech warrior when it suits you and then act like a whiny baby and sue someone when they criticize you. So, where is Johnny now? Hank doesn't say exactly where he is for security reasons, but everyone knows the situation. The guy is probably staying in a shady boarding house or cheap hotel, trying to figure out how to pay for his next meal because Hank Bank has officially closed. And what really bothers me is this. Johnny is genuinely in danger there. This isn't just internet drama anymore. People in South Korea genuinely hate this guy. We're talking about a special forces soldier who can't control himself and beat up Johnny. If trained military personnel are losing their temper because of you, you know you've made a big mistake. Hank even said that it's not safe for Johnny to stay in a shared accommodation with others. Think about it for a second. The guy is so hated that even staying in a hostile dormitory poses a security risk. This isn't a people don't like me level of hatred. It's a I could be attacked while sleeping level of hatred. Now Johnny is sitting somewhere, probably getting drunk, and realizing that his I'll do whatever I want attitude hasn't gotten him anywhere. He has no money, no friends, no safety net, and a lawsuit hanging over his head. This will bring him back to a sobering reality check.
Let's talk about what might be going through Johnny's head right now. For the first time in his life, he's facing real consequences without any safety net. Before this, there was always someone to save him, his family, his friends, or ultimately Hank. But now, silence. The man who spent $20,000 to keep him afloat has announced to the public that it's over. This is especially confusing if you're already dealing with legal issues and real physical threats. I'd bet Johnny is going through the 5 stages of grief right now. Denial, Hank will come back. Anger, how could he abandon me? Bargaining, maybe I'll apologize. Depression, I'm completely ruined. And hopefully, eventually, acceptance. I did this to myself. The loneliness factor is also huge. Being alone in a foreign country where people don't actively like you, with no money and no support system, that's psychological torture. And unlike his usual provocations, this isn't something he can just turn off when the cameras are off. Here's where Hank's plan gets interesting. The guy is planning to flee to China. He'll just pack his things and leave all this Korean drama behind. Frankly, it's a smart move. Why stay there and deal with the consequences of other people's bad decisions? But when you think about it, the timing is pretty cold. He acted as a father figure to an adult man for 9 months, wasted $20,000, and now that things are really getting tough, he's saying, goodbye, I'm going to China. It's like being someone's wingman all night, helping them talk to people, getting them drinks, and then when that person fails, saying, my job is done, and walking away. However, in this case, the wingman spent a year's salary on this experience. Did they have something called brothers in crime? It seems like this brotherhood ends when the credit card limit is reached. There's a real all-or-nothing energy here, Hank. But to be honest, I can't blame him. You can support someone by thinking you're helping them, but at some point, you realize that it's not helping them. It's just delaying their confrontation with inevitable realities. Maybe letting Johnny find his own solution is the kindest thing Hank can do right now. Remember when those clowns said Johnny could pay a $100 fine and be done with it? Yes, on that matter, even Hank is changing his mind now. He says it will take a few months. Not days, but months. Not a light penalty. Johnny's next court date is August 13th. But that's not even the verdict. The entire process could drag on until the end of the year or even into 2026. And with each passing day, Johnny's financial situation worsens. South Korea doesn't mess around with these kinds of issues. You can't come to their country, disrespect their culture, cause trouble, and expect to get away with just a fine. They're making an example of him, and to be honest, good for them. The prolonged legal process is likely the worst part for Johnny. He can't leave the country, can't earn money effectively, and has to keep paying legal fees.
It's like watching someone bleed out slowly in front of everyone.
This situation perfectly illustrates the dark side of internet fame. Johnny thought he had it all figured out. Be controversial, go viral, turn anger into money. A simple formula that works for others, right? You're wrong. There's a big difference between being controversial and actually causing harm. You can push boundaries without risking legal or physical danger and still get people talking. Johnny completely missed this distinction. He confused negative attention with valuable attention. Of course, people were watching him, but they weren't watching him because they liked him or wanted to support him. They were watching him like people slow down to look at a car accident, not out of genuine interest, but out of morbid curiosity. And here's the real kicker. Even if you go viral for bad behavior, it doesn't automatically translate into money. Brands don't want to be associated with controversial topics. Platforms will make it impossible for you to make money. Sponsors will run away. Going viral for the wrong reasons is worse than not going viral at all. Johnny learned this lesson the hard way. All that attention, all that fame, and what did he end up with? No money, no real friends, and a legal mess that could determine the next few years of his life. What happened between Johnny and Hank says a lot about relationships in the digital age. They were connected by shared content creation goals, but they never built a genuine foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Hank thought he was investing in a partnership, perhaps even a real friendship, but Johnny saw it as a source of income. When one person gives everything while the other only takes, that's not friendship, it's exploitation with extra steps. Money also made everything strange. When Hank started paying for everything, the power dynamic shifted completely. Johnny was no longer his equal, he was essentially Hank's dependent. And no one respects someone they're dependent on, especially someone with Johnny's attitude. True friendship endures in tough times. Friendship in good times evaporates when things get tough. Guess which category this relationship falls into? All this chaos is like a masterclass in what not to do, both online and in relationships. First lesson, don't spend serious amounts of money on strangers online, no matter how much you like their content or how connected you feel to them. Second lesson, understand that online personalities aren't always real people. The Johnny Hank thought he was helping might mostly be a role. When dealing with someone's real life, you deal with all the messy, unattractive things that don't show up in videos. Third, know when to cut your losses. Hank should have realized months ago that this wasn't a sustainable situation. It took him $20,000 and 9 months to realize this, showing how deeply he was caught up in the sunk cost fallacy. Fourth, actions have consequences, especially when doing things in foreign countries. Johnny thought the American attitude would protect him everywhere. Turns out other countries have their own laws and tolerance levels. Do you know what the biggest irony of all this is? Johnny talked for years about being independent, doing whatever he wanted, not having to answer to anyone, but over the past 9 months, he's become completely dependent on others for almost everything. All that tough guy talk, that I don't need anyone attitude, but he couldn't even pay his own rent. From being the so-called internet tough guy, he's become financially dependent on someone else. That must be really painful. And now that his assistant is gone, he's learning what real independence is. Spoiler alert, being broke, alone, and facing legal issues in a foreign country isn't fun at all.
Look, I'm not going to pretend I feel sorry for Johnny. He made his own choices, and now he has to deal with the consequences. You reap what you sow, as they say. But this situation is very interesting from a psychological point of view. How did two grown men end up in this situation? How did a simple internet friendship turn into a $20,000 disaster? The answer is likely a combination of ego, poor decision-making, and the strange dynamics social media creates between people. Add a touch of financial desperation and a healthy dose of idealism, and you've got this disaster. Hank finally realizes the truth. Johnny is about to learn some tough lessons about the consequences, and the rest of us are watching it all unfold from the safety of our own homes.
Sometimes the internet gives us comedy gold, sometimes cautionary tales. This story? Definitely both. The craziest part is that all this chaos is still ongoing. Johnny is still there, probably wondering how everything went so wrong so quickly. Hank is probably packing his bags to go to China and trying not to think about all that money he'll never see again. And amidst all this chaos, there's probably a lesson about friendship, money, and the strange world we live in where people can become famous online because they're terrible human beings. What an interesting time we live in, don't you think? The $20,000 betrayal, Johnny Somali's best friend finally said, enough. Hey, let me tell you the craziest friendship breakup story you'll hear this year. Johnny Somali's best friend, Hank the Tank, dropped a bombshell on a podcast. This guy openly admitted that he spent $20,000 to keep Johnny's poor ass afloat. Yes, you heard that right. So now what? It's over. Completely over. Here's the jaw-dropping part. Hank had never even met Johnny before all this mess started. Think about that for a second. You'd probably think twice before lending $20 to your best friend from college, but this guy spent $20,000 on a random internet personality he'd never even met. He says, "This aligns with my honor compass." Honor compass? Dude, what kind of honor compass tells you to finance a complete stranger's entire life? Lawyer fees, rent, food, bills, I mean, everything. This wasn't just helping a friend. It was essentially adopting an adult man. And listen to this. When Hank was asked if Johnny would do the same for him, what was his answer? Probably not. He even knew Johnny wouldn't spend a single penny on him, yet this situation made sense to him for nearly a year. Do you want to know why Hank finally broke down? Imagine living with someone who uses your home like a student dorm. We're talking about an adult man who gets drunk, vomits everywhere, doesn't clean up after himself, and turns your home into his personal playground. You know the best part? Johnny isn't paying rent. This guy is living in Hank's house without paying rent, eating his food, using his electricity and water, and probably leaving dirty dishes everywhere. Meanwhile, Hank is also covering Johnny's legal fees because he keeps getting into trouble. I don't care how much you believe in honor, at some point you have to draw a line. And apparently, after $20,000 and 9 months of chaos, this is where things get really interesting. These two geniuses were planning to sue Legal Mindset for defamation because the guy exposed them. Makes sense, right? You can't let people talk badly about you without consequences. But, and here's where things get really funny, Hank goes on this podcast and admits he did it all for the money. He says outright, yeah, if I can get money out of him, of course I'll do it. The guy just screwed up his own case.